Welcome to the Service to Syndication Podcast, where we interview the biggest and most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, capital raisers in the world who have worn the uniform of this great country, those who provide services to our men and women in uniform, and other service-oriented professionals to provide you with the tool sets, the mindsets, and the skill sets to help you conquer your dreams and goals in real estate and to use this wealth creation vehicle so you can live a more successful, happy, and fulfilled life of generosity and prosperity. If what you desire is time, lifestyle, and financial freedom, you've come to the right place. We will bring to you the best real estate entrepreneurs who will give you the insights, the knowledge, experience, skills, so you can go out and crush it in whatever real estate asset class you desire. So grab a pencil and paper, sit back, and enjoy the ride on the Service to Syndication Podcast. Hello, my servicemen and women and other service providers. Welcome to another episode of the Service to Syndication Real Estate Podcast, where we interview the most successful real estate entrepreneurs, investors, capital raisers in the world, where most have donned the uniforms of this great country. We aim to provide the tool sets, mindsets, skill sets for you to achieve your personal and business goals while using real estate as a wealth creation vehicle to help you live a more successful, happy, and fun-filled life. I'm super excited today because I have Mr. Tim Kelly, who is a top-notch real estate investor and educator through ADPI. But before I properly introduce our exciting guest to you, I want to ask a favor of you. Please, if you get some value out of the interview today, if you get some type of insight, mindset shift, if you learn a new skill, new information, receive inspiration or motivation to go out and take some action and make some progress in your life, please share this episode with some of your friends. Send it to someone you know who might be or could be interested in real estate. Share it on your social media, post it on your wall, or share it in your stories. Help us spread our message while you help others. For all of you who share this episode, I want to say thank you. As I mentioned, everybody, I have Mr. Tim Kelly. Tim Kelly recently separated from the United States Navy as an active duty chief petty officer. There he was instructing flight students on water survival, engine systems, leadership, mindset, ethics, and professional development. His last few years in the Navy, Tim was also aggressively investing in multifamily real estate projects. Now, senior managing partner of Kelly Housing Group, he invests in and syndicates both residential and multifamily properties in the affordable and workforce housing spaces, where they focus on apartment communities, mobile home communities, RV parks, and storage facilities. As a vice president of education and co-owner of the online community Active Duty Passive Income, he helps other past and present military members on their path to financial freedom through owning more of America, the land they swore to protect and fight so hard for. So again, welcome, Tim. So listen, the first thing I do when I bring my guest on is I ask them to walk us through their real estate journey in 75 seconds or less.
Oh man, thanks for the warm welcome. So I guess the clock is ticking, man. Let's get it in. Thanks again for having me on. So I was basically on a long deployment in 2014 out of Norfolk, Virginia on the USS Baton. And I brought a stack of books with me, and I always had an interest about personal finance and building wealth. Didn't really get the real estate bug yet, but I kept reading. I kept my curiosity high of how people build wealth and how people maintain wealth and sustain financial freedom. And I kept seeing a pattern of real estate investing. So got the real estate bug, got off that deployment, 2015, immersed myself in education, immersed myself in coaching and mentorship. And essentially I focused quickly on large commercial multifamily to include apartment complexes and mobile home parks. That's kind of where I got my start. And it just was more aligned with my goals instead of just doing one single family home at a time, and at that point I, was able to transition out of the military. While I was doing that, I also connected with a couple of military real estate investors, and we established and grew the incredible education community for military members, like you just mentioned, ADPI, active duty, passive income. And so now I'm here in Tampa, Florida, and just really loving my financial freedom, but also giving back and serving the military community to learn the things I did. And I love talking about mindset, and I love the investing mindset, especially when it's military members who have so much grit and tenacity and leadership potential and work ethic. So I don't know what the timeline is at this point, but that's in a nutshell, man, a little bit about me.
Oh, sweet. It's all good. So, let's go back to something you just mentioned. So what was it that really sparked you and your interest to get into real estate? Because, just for, for people who are listening, who may not be well versed in the military and what goes on, you were on you were active duty. Your trajectory had you going to basically, relatively do 20 years. So all you had to do was do the status quo, and you would retire with a pension at a relatively early age. So what was it that sparked your interest into real estate?
Man, like I said, the more I was hungry to learn, I kind of always had an interest in personal and professional development. And then I always just was looking to consume more. You don't learn about money in school, right? You don't, unless your parents or guardians or whoever raised you sit you down and explain to you like how money works and everything. You just go about your day not really thinking about it. It's just kind of like people just assume you kind of know. So I just had a curiosity about it. And the more I kept reading, the more I realized that anybody, the average person, you don't have to be like a multimillionaire. You don't have to have parents who were wealthy. You don't have to have any crazy connections in order to invest in real estate. Anybody could do it. You don't need a license. You don't, all you need is some faith in yourself. And then of course, education and a desire. And then the more you kind of learn about the success mindset, the more you realize like, I could do this. This is something I could just emulate. And there's so many books and podcasts, like what you're doing is incredible because you're interviewing people who have been there and who have done that. And you could learn so much from just listening to podcasts and reading books and investing in yourself and going through education, because that's exactly what I did. The more I read, the more I was curious, and I was just learning. I was working on just the real estate mechanics of like how to and the different asset classes to invest in and the different strategies. But I was also working on my own mindset growth and personal and professional development, because the more you grow as a person, as a human, as a mother, as a father, as a philanthropist, as a leader, the more that you'll grow as an investor, because really it is, 20% mechanics and the how-to and 80% mindset and psychology. So that's what I was kind of doing. I was kind of growing symbiotic to my personal professional development as I was learning about, the how-tos of real estate. And I've always loved giving back and teaching other people. And you learn something, you do something, and you teach something. That is how the quickest way to mastery, right? So I just had that inkling of sharing and educating and mentoring others, and I think really accelerated, my journey as well.
All right. So, how did you get into your first real estate deal?
Yeah. So, man, I mean, this goes back to 2011 when, I used my VA loan, 0% down. I was stationed in the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area. Actually bought a house in Suffolk, Virginia, which is part of the Hampton Roads area. And, I didn't even know about the house hacking strategy at that point, but I did it. There was a master bedroom on the top level, master bedroom on the bottom level. So, I was staying in the top master bedroom, and then I was like, why don't we just rent this out? Like, we had this extra space. We got it, essentially for our, parents or family, but like, most of the time we don't have anybody. So, and we had another guest room upstairs that, to share with our family. So I actually house hacked before I really knew the term, and it was a live and flip. As I was living in it, I was fixing it up, redid the bathrooms, redid the kitchens, like just on my own. And, I had the help of some licensed contractors. So back in 2011, I used my VA loan, ended up being a fix-it, live and flip and a house hack. And then I got the real estate bug in 2015. I started actually learning about real estate, and that first transaction really helped pique my interest because I enjoyed shopping for real estate and adding value to real estate. It was just something that was very interesting. Then I got educated. Then I got the bug, and I knew I would quickly wanted to focus on apartments and mobile home parks, but I also wanted to focus on the house hacking strategy. It's such a great place to start, especially if you've never done it. And so my very first deal, when I was focused on apartments and mobile home parks, I ended up moving to and PCSing to Pensacola, Florida. And literally that month, I closed on a fourplex with the intentions of house hacking. But then 6 months later, closed on my first apartment complex. 6 months later, closed on another triplex. Then I house hacked that. And then right after that, I closed on my first mobile home community. So the very first deal was the fourplex, but then, the very first apartment complex was shortly after that. If you wanted me to dissect, I just tell me which one, because they both have a completely different story. And, the goal here, like you said in the beginning, I don't want to leave this interview unless there's an aha moment or a discovery moment or something that people can take away and go implement in their life. Right now, that's also my goal too. So you tell me which one. I'm happy to dissect either of those deals or whatever you would like to go with.
Yeah. So let's focus on that fourplex right now. Because a lot of people who may be listening to this may not have any structure right now in terms of which way to go. This may be their first opportunity, their first deal they look at. So let's dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah, it's pretty unique, man. I mean, like here's like a couple different takeaways, that lessons that I learned. I got orders to Pensacola. I was still stationed in Virginia Beach. And the minute I got orders, I knew I was going to continue investing. So the minute I got orders, I started networking and connecting with people who were in Pensacola before I even got there, which I don't know if you picked up, that month that I moved, I closed on it. So obviously it's going to take time. If if you wait until you PCS or transfer to a neighborhood, then you got to start meeting people and networking. Then you got to go shop for deals. But I got orders. Right after that, I started connecting with people, actually made some trips to go shop in the neighborhoods. So that month, I set myself up to close on a fourplex with the intentions of house hacking. And so that was, a big learning lesson for me. Make sure you're actually looking at the market. If especially if you're in the military, if you're moving somewhere, go research it before you actually move. You can connect with people on the ADPI community and all the different forums. You can find people local. And what my plan was to use something called a 203K loan. It's an FHA loan. It's a rehab loan. And you can get up to 4 units. You can get a single family, duplex, triplex, fourplex, as long as you have the intentions of moving in, and you could wrap the cost of rehab into that loan. So that was my very first actual deal of income producing real estate. I bought a fourplex, got the property for $150,000 in the heart of a beautiful neighborhood in Pensacola, Florida. It was fully rented out, and it was in bad shape. There was a lot of deferred maintenance. Rents were way below market, and I ended up wrapping $100,000 worth of rehab costs into that loan. So I bought the property for $150,000. I wrapped $100K into that. That's a $250,000 loan. I was able to borrow the cost for the property and the rehab, and I only had to put down 3.5% on that total project cost. So if you didn't know, the FHA also, is offering not just a regular owner-occupied loan, but a rehab component. And for those in the military, past or present, the VA loan also offers that. That's a whole nother conversation we could have, but the VA loan is absolutely incredible, 0% down. They also offer not only the rehab component, but a development and construction component. So that was a little bit about my first deal. I took advantage of that FHA 203K loan. And I ended up, that was with the intention of moving into one unit. And that was That was the first deal that I did. And 6 months later, I bought an apartment complex.
Man, that's super. And that was a huge gem that even you laid upon me. I know about the VA loan, and I consider myself at least knowledgeable enough about it, but I didn't even know about the rehab component that they have available within the VA loan.
I told you about the triplex shortly after that I actually moved into. Long story, I didn't actually move into the fourplex because rehab took over 6 months. And as long as you have the intentions of moving in, you don't have to move in if it's beyond 6 months. So I ended up moving into an actual triplex and used the VA rehab component similar to I did on the fourplex, but with a VA loan. And it was almost 0% down. I had to come out of pocket for some rehab costs or from some closing costs, maybe like about $6,000. And that was a $350,000 project. It was a $280,000 property and a $70,000 rehab. That was a $350,000 loan. I had to put like $6,000 down, and it was a VA rehab loan. So it was a very similar loan. There's a lot of nuances with making sure you're working with a licensed, bonded, an insured general contractor, and working with the rehab loan is also a little bit unique and different. But that's it's a great, something a lot of people don't realize is available as a VA loan option for sure.
Yeah. So the one thing that I took away from that, or one of the things anyway, is going back to early on. You said, just literally starting out with this conversation, is that you read books. You got yourself educated about the real estate market and the real estate industry. And then now with all that information you had learned, you were able to now turn that into knowledge about the VA loan and that component, the 203K FHA loan product that they have. So listen, everybody, if you're out here, you're listening to this, read, educate yourself in real estate. And of course, if you are a present military member or former military member, definitely tune in to ADPI, because trust me, I'm a member there, and I'm telling you, you want to plug into that community. It's tight-knit community. And I'll definitely give you, Tim, a little bit later, opportunity to speak on ADPI and all the benefits of it. Yeah. So let me ask you this question as well. Like during this time, were you married, or are you married? Were you married?
I was, yeah. At the time I was. Yep.
Okay. So during this time, your spouse seeing all these things happen, like, what was she thinking? Like, hey, hold on. Like, this is, was she on board with it, or,
Such a great question, man. This is another bunch of lessons learned here that I'm glad you asked, because I could share these lessons learned so whoever's listening doesn't make the same mistakes. It's when you have the faith that you can create financial freedom and that you could get out of the rat race and go buy a multi-million-dollar apartment complex, and partner on these deals. If you tell the average person, or if you go share that with people in your command at work or at your W-2 job, they're going to look at you like you got two heads. They're like, who do you think you are? Like, and so you're setting yourself apart, being able to think big and being able to just go after it and not hold yourself back. You're really separating yourself from the masses. You really are. And if your spouse is not 100% tracking with you, if he or she isn't like learning with you along the way, it might be difficult for them to understand your goals and your ambitions, even if you're doing it to build a legacy for your family. So at first, she was there, she was learning. I was kind of keeping her posted on all these different things about the why. And I think she understood the why. But then eventually she's like, I'm not as excited as you about all this stuff. I'm kind of just going to let you know. And at first, I was like, no, why can't you learn this? This is going to be changing our future, this and that. So at first I was like, I was a little bit kind of, it was unsettling knowing she wasn't as excited as I was, but I'll tell you this, the minute I realized that I don't need her to be as excited as me. I don't need her to help me with the day-to-day stuff. I just need some support. I just need actual, emotional support, because obviously there's going to be a lot of challenges when you're going for something big. You're taking risks. There's going to be challenges. So I'll tell this to the people who have spouses: if you're in it or if you're going through it and you have a spouse who's on board, who's actually helping you, don't let that go, because you're at a major advantage, right? But those who have maybe similar to me, who like your spouse kind of understands, but maybe he or she doesn't really, isn't as excited as you, just understand it's okay as long as there's support. Now, it's a completely different situation if the spouse is against it and really just letting you know that he or she isn't for it, or he or she doesn't believe in you, then that's a little bit destructive, and that's a different situation. But as long as there's support, if you're feeling like a little unsettled, like I was at first, that your spouse isn't completely on board, isn't as excited as you, it's okay. Because you're really setting yourself apart, and you shouldn't hold it against he or she, because if they support you along the way, that's really all you need. Then you just go do your thing, and you continue to prove to her or him that it's real. The more work that you're doing, you're proving to her or him that this is not something that I'm just gonna wish. I'm making this thing happen, and then it's gonna be a little bit more real for them once they see your success.
That is huge. That right there is very huge, because I can just speak to myself and the things that I've done. When I was in the single family space, I got a home and I started rehabbing it. And, she would see me leave, I would talk about it. And, she was like, okay. But when it was finally ready to be sold, I brought her over to the house. She had never seen the house. She had heard me talk about it, never laid eyes on it or anything. We walked into the house and she was like, oh my goodness, this is beautiful. Like, you actually did this, of course, my contractors, but I spearheaded that. And that's when real estate became real to her. It became real once she actually saw the product. And so, again, kind of like Tim was just saying, if you guys don't have that person and they're not all in right now, you show them that finished product and watch how they turn.
Prove it. Just prove it to them that it's not just a dream. That it tangibly could change the trajectory of your family. Your family's financial future. So yeah, I'm glad you echoed that, man. That's a big piece of it. If you're struggling with that,
Yeah, 100%. So I know you did the book thing and all of that. Along the way, did you have any mentors, or do you have any mentors right now?
Always, man. I wouldn't be where I'm at unless I had people to lean on, unless I actually had coaches, unless I surrounded myself with other like-minded and like-hearted people. I'm paying plenty of money each year to be in certain masterminds, to surround myself with people, and I could talk about for days the importance of proximity, and that you are the average of the 5 or 10 people that you surround yourself with. There's no debating that. I have a feeling like the people who are listening may have heard some version of that. Like, you are the average of 5 people you surround yourself with, and it's absolutely 100% accurate. If you take a piece of paper, and this is a really good takeaway action item you could do today, is you take a piece of paper, you flip it horizontal, and you write the 10 people that you spend the most time with, friends, family, colleagues, whatever, the people you spend the most time with. And at the top, you just write, their age, maybe their income or their net worth, how happy they are, their relationship status, the amount of kids they have, how much they travel, how much they give, and continue on with all the characteristics. You fill all that in. At that bottom, you're the cumulative average of all of that. right? And you can't debate it, So just be very mindful of the rooms that you're in, and it's actually recommended to be the dumbest person in that room if you haven't heard that before, because that means you're just growing. You're in the right room. You're reaching up and you're excelling in some way. There's nothing bad with being the smartest person in the room, as long as you're helping others, you're giving value, and you're bringing people up. You're reaching down to pull them up to your level. But the goal is to just always be super mindful of who you're surrounding yourself with, because they will make or break your success for sure.
Yeah, that's huge. So, what markets are you currently investing in?
Yeah, man, that's funny that you say that. It was specifically, let's say, about from the beginning, when I first started really looking at apartments and mobile home parks back in 2017. It was the Southeast, and then that opened up to the Midwest. And now I would say the same, but I mean, for those who know the current market and economic status that we're in, just the climate that we're in, with higher than average interest rates. And by the way, I think our interest rates that we're in right now should be considered the new normal. No one could hope or expect that they're going to go down. If anything, they might go up. But with interest rates higher than they have been in the last couple of years, and us getting off this inflation, and then hyper supply in some markets, and hyperpopulation in some markets, I had to open up my criteria a little bit. And I'm not really discounting any market. There's some markets that I won't look in. I'm not a person that is investing in like Class A markets, like the Los Angeles, the Miami, the New York, the San Francisco, because whenever there's a downturn, those Class A residents will go to Class B or C apartment complexes. If they're renting a home and they can no longer afford the home because rents went up, chances are they're going to move into a B class apartment complex or a C class apartment complex. So it's really the B or C workforce and affordable housing in markets that show a predictable path of progress. And that could be places in the Southeast, different places in Alabama, or Tennessee or Louisiana, or places in the Midwest that have shown strong, continual, market improvements, like different places in Ohio and Indiana, and even places in Illinois. And I've noticed, the coastal markets and those Class A metros, during any kind of volatility, they're the ones that go up and down the most in terms of values of real estate in the residential sector, of course. But maybe the Midwest and places in the Southeast, it's more of a slow, gradual appreciation, pattern that has been, shown over the years. So yeah, I mean, I know it's a long answer, but I'm not really specific to my criteria with deals that are kind of constantly coming into my inbox, and I'm constantly looking at deals. I'm looking at some markets that I never have before, because there are opportunities out there, but there are less opportunities out there because of where we're at in the cycle. But of course, we are going to come back around. As we know, the real estate cycle is cyclical, and things are going to be booming again here pretty soon. So.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned the criteria, because I've actually had to do that myself. I had to change my criteria a little bit. Like right now I'm looking for assumable debt, looking for seller finance type deals and things like that. And, maybe not going after the bigger deals right now, maybe the mid-level, mid-sized deals. So yeah, I totally get it. So now, how are you finding your current deals that you're investing in?
Yeah, I personally, I've never been the one to source deals. I've always worked with partners who are going out direct to seller, getting lists. So right now, I'm in a position to where deals are brought to me instead of me going out and contacting, brokers and and trying to like hustle and grind to find the deals and attract the deals. But luckily deals are kind of just are sent to me, and I love helping people get deals done, mostly on the acquisition side, whether they need some capital raised, or whether they need a balance sheet or a guarantor or a key principal, or if they somehow need support closing. And then I'm like during the operational period, I'm there support. There, during the beginning asset manager calls, just to make sure the team and the boots on the ground have what they need and have my support. But that's how I get involved in deals now. And luckily deals are kind of just brought to me, and I get to look at the different deals, and I tell you what, there's still great deals out there.
Okay. So to me, it kind of sounds like you're on their, or the people who bring you deals, kind of like their priority list. And would you say that that's because of all the value that you've added and given?
Yeah, I mean, that, of course, that's the most important thing, but it's because I just, made a habit of continuously building my relationships and networking and getting out there, and like using social media as a tool to share what I'm doing, what I've been up to, what I'm looking for, and how I help people, and kind of just getting on these podcasts and sharing my story, and so. But when you connect with people, making sure that you deliver the right amount of value, you do what you say you're going to do. You show up at the time you say you're going to show up. And I'll tell you what, that's in business. I've learned there's a lot of people that don't do that very simple thing that really sets you apart. Right? Do the things that you say you're going to do at the time you said you were going to do them, and just be a moral and ethical individual. You really set yourself apart if you do those simple things, right? So that's also key, and just bringing the value and understanding what role you're going to play and how you're going to get compensated.
Hey, thank you for tuning in to the Service to Syndication Podcast. If you are a military service man or woman, government employee, or any other service-related professional, this is for you. I once was where you are. As a service member, I lived paycheck to paycheck. As a government employee, I knew there was more out there for me. I tried all the get-rich-quick schemes. None of them worked. Then a friend of mine introduced me to real estate investing. I am a commercial multifamily syndicator who helps those who have served in the military and those who provide services to our men and women in uniform and other service-oriented professionals achieve their time, lifestyle, and financial freedom by investing passively into multifamily real estate. If you know that this life has more in store for you, I invite you to tune into the Service to Syndication Podcast to learn the tools, tricks, and concepts to help you achieve the time, lifestyle, and financial freedom that comes with investing in real estate. So go over to cobbscreekcapital.us. That is COBBSCREEKCAPITAL.US, and schedule a call so that we can get to know one another and see how we can work together to help you achieve your goals.
When you're building a partnership, it's super important to hash those things out before you actually go into a deal with somebody. Have a really, really good, tough conversation. Like, these are all the roles. What is every single person going to do on the team? What functions are you going to play, and how are you going to get compensated for that? And hashing all that out before you even think about moving towards closing. And that's just, again, another big thing that I've learned along the way too.
Okay. So let's talk about one of your most recent acquisitions. Tell us about it, what it was, how was it acquired, syndication, JV, or you just wrote that fat check right out your back pocket and paid for it. So just give us a little insight on that.
The one that I'm probably most excited about is a mobile home park in Johnson City, Tennessee. It's actually half mobile homes, half RVs. And Johnson City, Tennessee is a very strong market for mobile homes and for mobile home communities. There's a bunch of them that were directly around the one. That was found by actually somebody that I'm a certified high performance coach. And he was actually one of my prior students that I worked with for a great deal of time. And he is going, he went out on his own and started finding deals. And he brought me this deal to help him close it. And it was a phenomenal deal. It was about 90 pads, half RVs, half mobile homes. Rents were significantly below market. The owner was paying for all the water consumption. There was some deferred maintenance, and it's just a great market. Like all the other mobile home communities in the area were like 100% occupied. This occupancy was really strong, and there was a lot of opportunity to add value and to create equity and create value. And so that ended up being a 506 B syndication that we put together, which 506B is just friends or family. Syndication can't, promote that and advertise it publicly, and the way I remember that is the Reg D 506B is in bros or buddies, like it's just your buddies, your friends and family. And so we kind of pulled probably a handful of it was probably like eight or so people who brought between like 100K to, I think one of our investors bought about 250K, and man, they're definitely reaping some benefits right now because we've owned it for a year, and we've already hit their pref for year 2. And it's just a great, it ended up being a 65-35 split between limited partners and general partners. Limited partners getting, of course, the 65%, and general partners getting 35%. And so, yeah, it's just through this whole depression or whatever you want to call it, recession, there's such a, like, mobile home parks, the mobile home parks in my portfolio have performed better than my apartment complexes, to be quite honest. And they're all different. I can't say, you can't really compare them apples to apples because they're in different markets with different teams. But that's the one. And I was just talking to the team, and we have to have a conversation of how we're going to split up all this remaining cash flow that we have, and how we're going to distribute, above the pref, and just to make sure we're on the same page with our investors and what we promised them. So yeah, that's probably the one. One of the biggest things we did to create value is implement RUBS. If any of your listeners are not familiar with that, I mentioned that the owner was paying for all the water consumption of everybody, and so RUBS is a ratio utility billing system where you get one big bill, and you basically split it up depending on the number of occupants for each individual pad or unit or RV. So if there's one person living in an RV, when everything's split up, they're not going to be paying the same as like a 3-bedroom mobile home that has 4 people living in it or 3 people living in it. So there's basically just a formula broken down. You receive the bill, you break it up between the 90 pads, and then depending on how many residents are in each unit. So we basically build back all of that water bills, like $60,000 a year, something that we ended up saving. And then we added a bunch of value and raised the rents up to market, but we can't boost them up. In 1 year, we're not going to raise the rents $200 a month, because that's a big thing I learned too. Being in the mobile home park space, you got to be an empathetic capitalist, and that means learning and understanding, being empathetic towards members in the mobile home communities. If they get even a $50 bump in their rent, that's a big deal. For a lot of those families, that could break their affordability in their living. So you don't want to go in there, change a bunch of stuff, raise their rents, like $100, $200 a month, because you'll probably end up on the news, on the local news, and so you got to be
not in a good way either.
Exactly. You got to strategically make improvements and talk to them and give them opportunities to incrementally raise the rents. But we're on track to get things up to market rent within the next year or so. And so, yeah, it's just it's a deal that's been going great for us, and everything's been executed well.
Okay. Now, how is that deal being managed?
Yeah, there's a one of our members who is the asset manager. He lives in Asheville, North Carolina, which is not far at all. I think it's between 1 to maybe an hour and a half away from the park. So he goes and swings by. But there's also an on-site manager that we inherited that was actually working with the previous owners, and the previous owners weren't really giving them a whole lot of guidance. But this on-site manager is great. He lives in the park. He does all the things, collects the rents, kind of coordinates with the different contractors that come through, and helps just like maintain the cleanliness and enforces the rules and stuff. And so we have an asset manager that manages the on-site manager.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's good stuff. That you guys were actually able to inherit someone, and that the person is doing their job, like doing good for the facility. So that's great. Um, yeah. So how often do you guys meet? Let's say the GP team, if you will.
Yeah, at this point, once a month. I mean, we'll hop on a Zoom call once a month, and but that if things pop up, that we'll flex. Right when we closed, we did like weekly, meetings because the asset manager, and then the property manager were kind of handling stuff. But then the general partnership team would meet every single week via Zoom to make sure everything was going smooth. And then we had our own messaging chat in between to kind of go back and forth. And then once things started to stabilize a little bit, we did it like every other week, and then just recently, like within about the last month, maybe 2 months, we said, hey, let's just meet once a month. We don't need to meet every other week. We could just meet once a month and kind of update people. But things pop up, and if we need to flex, we will. And we have done that in the past. We rescheduled some calls that we needed to meet before, or if we don't even need to meet, we will. So that's how we are currently maintaining the management with our GP team.
Okay. Yeah, you mentioned you guys did some value adds on this. Can you mention just a few of them?
Absolutely, yeah. So the first thing we look at, aesthetic. It was new signage. The first thing you see when you look at a mobile home community is the sign, and people judge the whole park off what the sign looks like, right? So if you have a beautiful sign, people are going to think you maintain the park. And so we swapped out the sign. The mailbox system was kind of falling apart a little bit, so we completely replaced the mailbox area, and then we repaved some of the roads that just had potholes and stuff like that, and trimmed some of the landscaping. And then now we're continuing to add value. We're going through and enforcing that all the residents have the same skirting along, their mobile homes. So it just makes the whole place look even better and brighter and cleaner. But those are really the main things. And with the rubs, we're going away from the rubs because we are in the process of having a meter installed on each individual pad. So then each individual resident could just maintain their own water consumption. And I'm telling you, when you make residents in a community like this pay for what they consume, which rightfully they should, overall consumption will significantly decrease, at least by 30 or 40%. That's exactly what we've seen. It's crazy. They're not just going to let their water run or give their car a wash every day or something like that, or take 30-minute showers. They'll actually be mindful. If they know they're paying for it, they'll be mindful about their consumption. So yeah, and we're installing Metron brand meters that are pretty great because they could be checked and read via like remotely via an app or the software. So that's also pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm not in the mobile home space, but I'm a YouTube junkie. And I've never heard anyone talk about the skirting, even though I hear people all the time who are in the mobile home space. I've never heard anyone say have that uniformity. And that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, man, it really does. It will completely change the look of the park. And we're just looking for other ways to continue to add value and justify our rent bumps, even though we're bumping them up to where market is, and we haven't had anybody leave because they know it's still the most affordable place around, and the other mobile home communities are 100% occupied, and it's starting to look better, and it already is looking better than most of the other parks. So they're more than happy to comply, and they have incentive to do so. So it's that's just the next level of kind of creating value and making it just look like a more desirable community.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about this team real quick. I know that you said the person who brought you the deal, you were his high performance coach at one time. Let's talk about the rest of the GP team. How did you guys come together?
Yeah, so the Eric, the person that found the deal, the one that I coached, he brought me the deal, and then he also had a relationship with Kiyoki, who was our asset manager, who is living in Asheville, who had an interest in being an asset manager and being boots on the ground and looking in that same market. And then there was one other individual that came with some investing experience, and he also brought some of his own capital and some investor capital as well. And so that's the total team. And then I brought my own liquidity and a good amount of investor liquidity, and yeah, that's the GP team.
Okay, a few questions here. When did you guys purchase it? What was the purchase price, and what was your capital raise on it?
Yeah, so I have to think. Recently looked at the appraisal. So we bought it a little bit over. It was September of last year. So like I said, just over a year. The purchase price for initially was 1.8, if I remember correctly, because we just did the appraisal, and there was, and right now it's valued at the similar cap rate at 2.6. As per the financials that we just went through. So yeah, I bought it for 1.8. Now it's valued at 2.6, just about a year later, and that's incredible. For our investors and for the GP team, and so yeah. Oh yeah, and then the raise, we ended up getting really good commercial debt at the time. The interest rate, I think, was like maybe 4.5 at the time, which is great, especially compared to right now. And the total raise was about 9. I think for everything that we planned was about 900K. If I remember, I haven't looked at this in a minute. So if I remember correctly, it was about 900K with the equity and our capital expenditures, to include our acquisition fee and all closing fees and everything. Yeah, I think we raised just about 900K for that.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, 800K in equity built in a year, basically a year. That's huge.
Absolutely.
Now, are most of your investors, your personal investors, are they retail investors, or are they more real estate professional investors?
Yeah, so I mean, I have a mix between accredited investors, institutional, who I would only invite to 506C deals. But like I said, this one was a 506B, so it was people who we already had a substantive relationship with, friends and family. So for this deal specifically, it was people we already had relationships with, just in my network. I mean, obviously, the more people and the more people that know you and stuff like that, and you could talk about it amongst your friends and your family. You just can't go blast it out on social media and advertise it publicly. But yeah, the investors that work with this deal were just friends and family. But my investor network in general for all my deals are a pretty good mix between friends and family, people who had invested with me in the past, which is why, being a good steward of capital is really important, and making sure you're bringing your investors what you're prospectively offering them, and sharing with them, and hitting your targets, and hitting your metrics. And then other other investors that I've had along the way, when I've been promoting 506C deals. I also work with family offices. I love working with family offices. They're, especially if you could deliver them deals consistently, depending on what they're looking for, what you're offering meets their criteria, having a relationship with even one family office could be very lucrative for you and fruitful.
Yeah. So that I hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now, what have you been doing to nurture the relationship with your investor base?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is, I know what a lot of people, in order to scale, is simply have an email database and have a newsletter sent out, once a month or a couple times a month, to keep them posted on what you're doing, and the deal flow. But I haven't even moved up to that level at this point. I haven't felt the need. I kind of just have a database, my own database, and I just keep people informed. And then, of course, I maintain my social media engagement and activity, and a lot of those individuals just kind of see what I'm doing, and are reminded with what I'm doing based on my posts and my engagement on social media. So I think that's helpful. Plus, I mean, kind of, if I haven't heard from a certain investor or something, just maintaining the relationship would consist of like shooting a text, and like hopping on a quick 15 to 20 minute phone call. I mean, just keeping them updated, and and curious, especially if you don't know what their specific investing goals are, or if you haven't talked to them in over a year, making sure that you know exactly what they're looking for, and make sure they're up to speed on what you're doing. That 15 to 20 minute phone call could be game changing. And, that reminds me, like, you are one conversation away from just a completely pivotal, transformational thing happening in your life or in your business. You're one conversation away, one phone call away. So if you have an intuition and you think you should be calling a certain person, a goal of mine is to at least 2 people a day have conversations with 2 people a day. They don't have to be new people. I usually like to do a new person every day, and like reconnect with somebody else another day. And this actually counts as one of those conversations. Like, I'll count this podcast conversation. We're creating this relationship now, and this has been amazing. So just having those conversations is really important. But a lot of people do it on automation, and they write an email a month or a couple times a month and just blast it out to their investor database. And also that email list is actually highly valuable these days as an asset. So if you're in the process of building your investor database, or continue to maintain as much contact information as you can, build that database, and then send them emails once a month or a couple times a month if you're curious how you can do that.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's great. Because I definitely have to make sure that I implement that myself, with reaching out to someone, a couple of people per day, or 2 or 3. I do, Zoom calls and everything like that through networking events and things like that. But just actually one-on-one reaching out, that definitely would go a long way. So
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jim. So because you're just recently out the military, say 2020 time frame, right? It was 2020, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know you still probably keep in contact with some of your comrades, but when speaking with your comrades who are not in real estate, do your conversations kind of veer off towards real estate?
I mean, that's a great question, because when you are maintaining a social media presence, and when you share with people what you're doing, a lot of those relationships are either maintained or reestablished because of what I'm doing. And other people will reach out to me and say, hey man, I'm really curious what you're doing, or I'd like to learn more about what you're doing, or I'd like to invest with you, you know? And so if, you know, there is a conversation that kind of was initiated by something other than real estate usually does come up. I mean, you know, and the more, like, if you're looking to build your business or raise capital, you know, that's the one best thing you could do, is just have conversations and continuously talk about it with everybody you meet. And sometimes people don't know, like, how to make that, like, transition into, like, a personal conversation into a real estate investing conversation. And I think the best thing, you know, you could do is just get to know them, really get to know who they are, what they're doing, and their excuse me, sorry about that.
Yeah.
And their goals, right? And I like to use FROG as an acronym: family, occupation, or family, recreation, occupation, and goals. FROG, FROG. That's the best way to build a rapport and really get to know someone. Ask them about their family, their recreation, their occupation, and their goals. And, you know, if still real estate doesn't come up, especially if you're not at, like, a real estate meetup or a conference where you're full of people, you could easily just say, well, do you have any investing goals? You know, that G, or have you ever considered getting involved in real estate? And that question is a great, you know, conduit and a great segue into what you're doing. Especially if you're confident in what you're doing and you could explain and educate people on what you're doing. That's a great way, because 9 times out of 10, man, people are going to be like, you know, I have considered it, you know, I'm interested in it, but I just, you know, and I have a lot of money to invest, but I just don't know how to. I don't know where to start, you know, or, you know, you know, my aunt's father's brother's dad said that he lost his shirt during 2008. So it's too risky. I don't want to get involved. Well, this is where you could educate them and help them understand there are still opportunities. And this is, you know, what savvy or accredited investors are doing these days. They're investing in syndications as limited partners, and they're capital investors who get monthly cash flow, who get tax benefits, who get equity ownership. And so that's a great segue. You know, have you ever considered getting involved in real estate? And they say yes, no, you know, and then you say, well, why? And you just shut up and listen and let them explain their views on real estate. And then you can figure out, well, what are your actual goals with real estate investing? And then if their goals line up with what you can offer them, if you're raising capital, if you can offer investors, you know, 15 to 18% IRR, or, you know, an 8% cash on cash with you know, tax benefits and ownership, then you could explain this to them, and the savvy investors will kind of already know, but they might not know that's what you do, you know, or some of your friends or your family that know you might not know this much detail. But either way, if there's an interest, they're going to want to know more, and that's where you can kind of sit down with them and explain your business model, like what you do, and more like along the lines of your criteria and what's in it for them if they invest, what their returns will look like. But yeah, man, a lot of the conversations usually initiate from real estate. If not, you know, I like to catch up, get to know their frog, or get updated on their frog, and then kind of transition if they've ever considered getting involved in real estate. Why or why not? You know?
Yeah, that's sweet. Frog, man. I got that written down. I'm not gonna forget that whenever. That's one that I can definitely remember.
Yeah, it's easy, man. We're all about the acronyms in the military. There's way too many of them. There's another one for you, but it's actually super beneficial. Whether you're in real estate or not, maybe you just want to build a relationship with someone and you don't know where to start. Ask them about their family. Ask them about their recreation, what they do for fun, what they do as a job professionally, or what their goals are, personal, professional, financial. It's just such an easy way to be genuinely interested in them, and that's the key. Is the way to build relationships and build influence is just be genuinely interested in people that you talk to. And you can do that by getting to know their frog and asking more questions. And 9 times out of 10, you're going to find a commonality, you know, that you could talk to, whether your kids went to the same school, or whether, especially if you're both military, that's easy. Or if you both like doing some certain sport for fun, like you find that commonality, that's the trust, that's the bond. And people won't invest with you until they know you, like you, and trust you, right? So that's the best way to do it, man, that I found.
Okay, awesome, awesome. I'm over here smiling at this last question because I already know what, this one question, I already know the answer to it, but how do you give back to the military community?
Yeah, I mean, one reason why I left the military was to serve in a different way, and still helping military families create wealth and financial freedom through financial literacy, real estate education, and coaching. We've created multiple academies, multiple masterminds. We have this incredible education community, 75,000 plus members just in our Facebook group alone. We have a highly rated podcast where we've interviewed Robert Kiyosaki and Grant Cardone and Jocko, but we've also interviewed, members of our community who are active duty or veterans who are crushing it. They've gone through our programs and they're in our community and they're crushing it. And so serving them, growing the community, creating more awareness, and really helping people achieve their financial freedom goals has been, my bread and butter since even before I left the military. And then, active duty passive income also has a mission to end veteran homelessness. And so we also are building homes and communities with partnering with Veterans Community Project (VCP), where we're contributing and we're raising funds and contributing money to build tiny homes for veterans so they can get off the streets. And it's an absolute epidemic, veteran homelessness. So we're looking to end it this decade by our initiative, and that's another way I like to give back.
Nice, nice. So, yeah, Tim, well, I have many, many, many other questions that I would really love to ask you, but, I know we've been running for, uh, uh, quite some time, but
Yeah,
I so, well, I do have to ask this one question. If you still have the time, please.
of course, man.
All right. You mentioned your why early on. What was your why when you first started? And has that why changed since you've been on this trajectory?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I mean, I think the reason why a lot of people get involved in real estate because it probably has something to do with money and financial freedom. But the more you learn about what freedom can bring, it's time. Getting your time back, and creating options for you and your family, and changing the financial future of your family tree. Um, Especially for those who you're like the first person in your family to be an entrepreneur or to try to really build a legacy. Um, but I also realized, success is not about obviously the things that you have or the amount of money that you make or your net worth. It's about the quality of your relationships. And so that is, I think, the best way to evaluate success. And also, what who God says you are, and that's something we haven't really talked about. And Christian man of God, and he has gotten me through a lot of struggles and challenges, and I look to him a lot. But it's I think the definition of success is who does God say you are, and the quality of your relationships. Because if you create these tangible things and these material possessions, but you don't have any relationships or people to share them with, or your spouse hates you, or your kids don't even know you, like what's the point? So time and freedom is absolutely a huge piece. Being able to give back in multiple ways was how it kind of transitioned to. But then I realized it's the why is being able to like maintain those crystal, beautiful relationships, and making sure that I'm fulfilled and satisfied with who God says I am.
Beautiful. That was definitely beautiful. Well, Tim, it has been a blast having you as our guest today. As we close out, please tell our listeners where we can learn more about you, get in touch with you, learn about all the fabulous things you have going on right now.
Yeah, man. For those past or present military members, thank you for your service. You know, if you're in a military family, whether you're active duty or a veteran, and this is something that was resonating with you, or you're looking to create more financial freedom using real estate, we have so many free resources in the active duty passive income community. You could literally just go download our best-selling book for free. It's called Military House Hacking. You got to check it out. It's a best-selling book. You can download it for free right now. You can either go to militaryhousehacking.com or activedutypassiveincome.com. Join our Facebook group. We have local meetups around the world where there's duty stations, you know, and commands situated around the world. We have ADPI Con, which is our conference that we're having a couple weeks, you know, here in San Antonio. And I wrote multiple books that are all free on our website about financial freedom, about the financial blueprint, credit, home buyer's guide. All these things are free. And then for those who are serious, we have academies for single family investing, for short-term rental investing, and for commercial and multifamily investing. And we have associated cohort structured where you go through the academy with a small group of cohort of students who are trying to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. And of course, masterminds that correspond with that, where you get access to high level guests and where you could kind of network and mastermind with other members who have similar goals to you. And there's a lot more tailored to that, but you got to check out the Active Duty Passive Income platform. Personally, the Timothy Kelly is kind of my handle and my website. You can go to thetimothykelly.com. My Instagram is @thetimothykelly, LinkedIn @thetimothykelly, Facebook, The Timothy Kelly is /Timothy Kelly, The Timothy Kelly. But if this resonated with you and you want to connect at a deeper level, man, just shoot me a text message direct to my cell phone and we'll hop on a call. And you could text me anytime at area code 847-910-9161.
Wow, that's amazing. Who does that? Give you their cell phone number. That's amazing. That tells you that's a true testament to the heart of this gentleman. So awesome, Tim. Again, I want to thank you today for your time and all the wisdom you have provided our listeners. It's greatly appreciated. And I want to thank you, our fans, for tuning into the Syndication Podcast, where we want to provide you with value in your investing business. Please tune in to our next episode where we will interview another fantastic investing professional. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Service to Syndication Podcast. We want you to know that we love and appreciate your support, and we are grateful about being a part of your journey to becoming a successful real estate entrepreneur. Please share this episode with a friend who you think will get a lot out of what you just heard. Send it to someone who you know is interested in real estate and dreams of having it all and being the best they can be in all areas of life. And if this was really valuable, share it on your social media stories and timelines. Thank you for watching and listening. Now go be great.